Welcome to another explainer. You know, if you were ever taught that human history is this perfectly neat, organized timeline of highly logical events, I'm going to need you to go ahead and throw that idea right out the window. Seriously, the truth is that our history isn't a straight line at all. It's actually this chaotic, wildly unpredictable blur of sheer accidents, bizarre feuds, and terrifying near misses. So today we're going to unpack some incredible true stories that prove history is far weirder and honestly far more accidental than any textbook would ever have you believe. Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty bizarre question. What on earth could a ruined piece of candy, a devastating 17th century inferno, and a tiny little flying insect possibly have in common? I know, it sounds exactly like the setup to a terrible joke, but the answer actually reveals the underlying theme of our entire journey today. Every single one of these completely random things accidentally gave birth to the modern conveniences we literally rely on right now. Because, as we'll see, sheer chaos has an incredibly funny way of building our world.
Humanity's narrowest escapes. The times we almost didn't make it. Talk about a literal domino effect of disaster. Picture this, it's 536 AD, and a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland unleashes an enormous cloud of soot and ash that actually blocks out the sun. For 18 endless months, Europe and parts of Asia are just plunged into this dark, freezing volcanic winter. We're talking summer snow destroying crops, which obviously led to widespread global famine. And just when you'd think it literally couldn't get any worse, a few years later, in 541 AD, the Justinian plague sweeps through and wipes out tens of millions of people. Just a compounding apocalypse, all triggered by a single fiery mountain. Now, let's fast forward a bit to a disaster that we barely even noticed back then, but one that would absolutely devastate us today. $2.6 trillion. That astronomical figure is the estimated modern-day financial toll if we were hit today by something called the Carrington event. Back in 1859, a massive solar flare struck the Earth. At the time, our only real tech was the telegraph, and get this, the electromagnetic surge was so powerful that telegraphs actually worked without being plugged into batteries. But if that exact same solar flare hit our highly electrified modern power grids right now, it would trigger global blackouts, totally fry our technology, and plunge global supply chains straight into the dark ages.
But hey, sometimes the threat doesn't come from space or volcanoes at all. Sometimes it's entirely of our own making. Well, with a little help from nature. Let's look at the incredibly tense 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. A guard at a military base in Duluth, Minnesota, spots a dark figure climbing the perimeter fence. Thinking it was a Soviet saboteur, they pull the sabotage alarm, which accidentally triggers a full-blown nuclear launch alert at a neighboring base. Nuclear-armed jets were literally warming up on the runway, inches away from kicking off World War III, before someone finally realized the terrifying Soviet saboteur was actually just a literal bear climbing a fence. I mean, a bear almost ended the world.
Bizarre battles and feuds. When conflict, it's completely absurd.
Okay, picture the two opposing sides of the 1932 Great Emu War. In one corner, you have the highly trained, well-armed Australian military, fully equipped with machine guns and thousands of rounds of ammo. And in the other corner, massive flocks of large, flightless birds. Farmers had begged the government to stop these emus from destroying their crops, so the military rolls in expecting a super easy victory. But the emus? They just scattered, regrouped, and completely outmaneuvered the soldiers. After a month of absolute pure humiliation, the Australian army actually gave up. The birds won.
But human conflict is just as wild, and it actually gave us modern sneaker culture. Back in the 1930s, two German brothers, Adolf and Rudolf Dassler, ran a booming shoe company. They were both Nazi Party members during a deeply volatile time in Germany. And during and after World War II, a seriously bitter feud, fueled by political betrayals and mutual accusations, totally tore the brothers apart. So in 1948, their single company splits right down the middle. Adolf created Adidas, and Rudolf created Puma. Two of the biggest rival sports brands on Earth accidentally birthed from a single family falling out.
And you know, humans have always used defiance as a weapon, sometimes with just incredible dark humor. Take St. Lawrence back in 258 AD. As the story goes, Roman officials were literally grilling him alive over an open fire as a form of execution. And his response to this unimaginable torture? Turn me over, I'm done on this side. I mean, the sheer audacity of delivering a punchy one-liner while being roasted is mind-boggling. And ironically, but perhaps perfectly fitting, that legendary quip made him the patron saint of both chefs and comedians.
Speaking of audacity, it turns out we have actually been complaining for millennia. Listen to this snippet from the world's oldest known customer complaint, carved right into a clay tablet in ancient Mesopotamia all the way back in 1750 BC.
A guy named Nani was absolutely furious over getting low-quality copper, and on top of that, the rude treatment of his messenger. He demanded a full refund from the merchant. It is definitive historical proof that humanity has always wanted to speak to the manager.
Accidental inventions and discoveries. The mistakes that made our world. Let's circle back to that devastating inferno we mentioned at the very beginning. In 1666, the Great Fire of London destroyed over 13,000 homes. The financial chaos was absolute. People lost absolutely everything, and there was zero safety net. But out of the ashes of this unprecedented disaster stepped a man named Nicholas Barbin. He capitalized on the sheer panic by selling the first official fire insurance policies. So the terrifying destruction of a major city inadvertently forced the invention of the modern insurance industry that we use to protect our stuff today.
And what about our melted chocolate bar? Well, in 1945, an engineer named Percy Spencer was just fiddling around with a high-powered radar set. Suddenly, he notices the chocolate bar in his pocket has completely melted into a puddle of goo. But instead of just being annoyed about his ruined snack, he realizes that the microwaves from the radar were actually cooking the food. From that one single moment of accidental snack sabotage, the blueprint for the microwave oven was born. There was no grand laboratory plan here, just a guy with a messy pocket. Even our everyday language evolves from these weird accidents. Case in point, in 1947, engineers working on Harvard's massive Mark II computer experienced a system malfunction. They search the machinery to find the problem, and they discover the culprit is a literal, physical moth trapped inside the relay. Totally bewildered, they tape the actual insect into their logbook and note it as the first actual case of bug being found. A physical insect officially cemented the term computer bug into modern tech terminology forever.
History's wildest animal tales, when beasts absolutely made history.
Consider this completely insane contrast. On one hand, you have the office of Roman consul, which was one of the highest, most respected political positions in the entire ancient world. On the other hand, you have Emperor Caligula's beloved racehorse, Incitatus. Caligula loved this horse so much that Incitatus had 18 human servants, his own marble stable, and literally ate oats mixed with actual gold flakes, and Caligula allegedly planned to appoint this horse as a Roman consul. Whether it was dangerous insanity or just an elaborate stunt to mock the real politicians, it remains one of the most absurd political plans in all of recorded history. And believe it or not, that integration of animals into human law only got weirder. Medieval Europe had this surprisingly universal justice system where animals were treated as moral actors. If a pig injured a child, it was literally dragged into court, tried, and hanged. Rats that destroyed barley fields were officially summoned to court, complete with defense lawyers who, by the way, successfully argued the rats couldn't safely attend the trial because of the local cats. The church even officially excommunicated swarms of insects. They actually applied human legal logic to a wildly chaotic natural world. But hey, sometimes the animals were actually the most qualified ones for the job. Listen to this unbelievable resume from the 1880s. A South African railway worker named James Wide lost both his legs in an accident. Desperate to keep his job, he trains a baboon named Jack to operate the complex railway signal levers. After a very rigorous official investigation, the railway was so impressed that they officially hired the monkey. Jack was paid 20 cents a day and half a bottle of beer, and in 9 years on the job, that baboon never made a single mistake.
Which really leaves us with this massive, lingering question. If the entire foundation of our human history is built on this many near misses, melted chocolate bars, bears triggering nuclear alarms, and baboons successfully running train stations, what accidental history are we making right now without even realizing it? The chaos of history isn't just something stuck in the past, it's actively being written today. So keep your eyes open, because the next massive leap forward might just be a total mistake waiting to happen. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.